5 years after the original Star Trek finished its final season, the first science fiction board game was published. And do you know what was included? A one-player scenario. That's right. Do you know the game? It was published by SBI, the designer Redmond A. Simonson, and the title, this was 1974, this was Star Force, Alpha Centauri, Interstellar Conflict in the 25th Century. That's right, it was a sci-fi war game. It was such a smash hit that it spawned 2 more spin-offs in the following 2 years. But mankind's fascination with space exploration and adventure and battle didn't stop there. No, we've only gotten more interested, and board games have not left us in a void. And now, there's a new game on the block. You want to meet it? Howdy and welcome back. I'm Mike, your board gaming every dude, and this is Voidpilot's Legacy. A little bit about the game and the campaign. So this is a Kickstarter campaign that's launching on October 1st. That's 2024 if you're watching this from the future. It is one player, 45 to 60 minutes per play, published by C Stories Creative Studios. Super nice guys here. The designer, Alex Gurley, artist, Abram Buck. Check out the Kickstarter page for pricing, shipping, all of that stuff. The cautionary disclaimers. 1, please make sure your Klingon subtitles are on in case I need to make any on-screen corrections after publishing the video. Goal is no, but it happens. Also, this is sponsored by C Stories Games. The game that you're going to see me using is a prototype, so go by the images on the Kickstarter for the most recent art renditions. And without further ado, let's look at the game. Space is cruel and harsh, but either by necessity or by ambition, you are a void pilot, a starship captain with the secret of interstellar navigation, operating on the frontier of the Empire. You will accept missions to earn credits. You will hire crew and lead them to survive and to win. You will make friends and you will lose them. You will abide by the law or you will break it. This is your legacy. How do you win the game? Well, the game happens in a series of runs. You'll see it goes from run 1 to run 8. Complete 8 runs, bam, you win the game. There may be some scenarios that give alternate win conditions. As you progress through the game, you're going to earn victory points. You tally up those victory points after you complete run 8 to see how well you did as a pilot. Unlock new skills and upgrades with the more points that you get at the end of the game. Also, optionally, you can go against the Pirate Lord after you complete Run 8. If you do that, you get to unlock some super cute and usable pets for future games. A key aspect of Void Pilots is sacrifice or heroism. So here you have your crew members. At any time in the game, a crew member may choose to heroically sacrifice themselves in order to let you re-roll 1 dice and possibly survive, maybe even win. Or, in a really dire situation, 2 characters, 2 besties, perhaps lovers, who knows, sacrifice themselves together to allow you to turn the dice to any number that you need for that roll. During any one event, you're able to sacrifice 1 health from your haul, there we go, 11, in order to re-roll 1 dice during that event. So let's look at what we have set up on the board here. On the bottom, we have our ship. We have our ship that we've chosen. You're going to select your ship from a variety that allow you to play how you want. Do you want to be a smuggler? Do you want to be an attacker? What do you want to be? I've chosen Valkyrie for a fairly balanced start. We've got our reactor, which produces our power discs that we use to power the rest of our ship. Our life support, which supports how many crew members we can have. Our laser, that's our attack. Our shields, that's our defense. Our engines help us evade attacks from enemies. And then, of course, the utilities, which allows us to use subsystems for more abilities. And we've got our fuel tank, the stellar drive, and also our run counter. Runs are the same as rounds in this game. There are colonies that we can continue to upgrade in order to use new abilities. Then, of course, there is our market. At certain space stations, we are able to purchase these upgrades for our ship. The market does rotate and change throughout the game. Up here, we have our combat. You'll see if you're on run 1 and you end up triggering combat, you're going to flip the top card and do that combat. By the time you get to run 3, you use the middle deck, and at run 7 and 8, you use the final deck. Let's start with how the game works in runs. Run is another word for round. So when you go for a run, you are going to work through the entire event deck. This is the Captain's Display event deck. As you fly through space, face enemies, get to space stations, all kinds of adventures. Once you get to the end of that run, it's going to say jump. First thing we're going to do is discard 1 fuel, because we've done a lot of flying around. Then we're going to rotate or flip, based on the icon, our Stellar Drive card. So that means we're starting in run 2. Next, we will shuffle any enemies that we defeated back into our combat deck for the next run. If we're not happy with what's on the market, we can replace any one of those items with a new card. Also, optionally, I can take 1 damage to my ship, so I'll take it down to 10. I can sacrifice 1 crew member, discard all my resources, and that will allow me to shuffle up my event deck. Finally, place the jump card at the bottom for your next run. Don't worry, there's lots of ways to lose the game. If you finish a run and you cannot discard any fuel, you're out. If you ever lose all your crew members, you're out. Don't worry, there's more. If your ship ever goes down to 0, you're out. And finally, just for kicks and giggles, if you ever lose too many battles, you're out. Let's walk through a turn. You have your Captain's Event Display. The first thing you're going to do is plan for your event by choosing it. The card on top is the primary event. The card underneath is the secondary event. You get to choose which one you're going to resolve. If the secondary event is ever a red text, then you must resolve that one. Once you've selected the event, you get to first manage your power. Move your power discs to where you'll think you will need them most. The more power in your laser, the more you can attack. The more shields, the more defense. The more life support, the more crew members you can support. The more engines, the more evasive your ship is. One option with an event is to gain it as a resource. Look at the top, that's the resource. If you want to gain the resource, rotate it 90 degrees, put it at the bottom of your Captain's Event Display, and you now have a resource to spend. You can only have up to 4 resources at any time. If at any time you want to spend that resource, just rotate it back 90 degrees, right where it is in the deck, don't change its position. Another option is to carry out the event text. In this case, I could choose to roll 1d6, and if it's a 3 or more, which it is not, then I would get to move up in my colony. Since I got a 2, let's say that I'm going to sacrifice 1 hull damage in order to re-roll. I've done that. Better this time. Okay, so we passed this time. Now, I get to rotate this 90 degrees, and I get to move forward in my colony. Each time you move down a colony space, you gain a benefit. In this case, I'd gain 1 crew. If I had 1 Q to spend, I could also choose to rotate this a full 180 degrees, which means it's now upgraded. It's now worth a victory point and more Q. Put it at the back of the deck. You'll gain resources like Q, you'll gain resources like mining, and possibly even illegal goods. Should you ever choose to smuggle, you will go from being a law-abiding pilot to now becoming wanted. This may trigger more battles in the future. Spending resources, like in this case spending 1 Q to rotate this 180 degrees, is key because it gives you those legacy points, not victory points, legacy points and more resources. You could then upgrade when this comes around again in a future run. You could spend 2 Q to flip it over, and now you've got even more benefits. This is essential if you want to survive later runs. You will eventually run into outposts. Now, these outposts, you can perform as many beneficial actions as you can afford. This is where you can gain crew. This is where you can gain upgrades. This is where you can smuggle illegal goods to turn this into something better. Then, of course, you can upgrade the outpost as well. Once you've upgraded something, though, it goes to the back of the deck, so always do that last. If the primary event is ever the red text, then you must resolve that. when you're at an outpost, you might have the option to buy from the market. In that case, you can pick any one of the cards. For example, in this case, I could take this weapon upgrade, the weapon capacitor, and I always want to say capacitator, and I could slide it under my weapon module. Now I get a bonus hit. We could also have a brand new module to add, so we could just add that to our lineup. Or maybe instead we want to add a subsystem. We would rotate it 90 degrees, place it underneath, so you can see everything you need to do right here. Now to use a subsystem, you do need to power it. So first you would move your power to the utilities module. Then on your next turn, you're able to move the power to the subsystem. That's why it's called a subsystem. Or at an outpost, you may have an option to upgrade a module. In that case, pick the module that you want to upgrade and flip it over. Now, it's worth legacy points, and you can have either more power or more upgrades, more abilities, whatever you want. Some outposts also allow you to purchase fuel. Remember, you need enough fuel to get through run 8. That means you'll need a total of 8 fuel to discard. You start the game with 4. Let's say you trigger combat, either with authority transmission or pirate transmission. Let's say I have authority transmission. In this case, if I have notoriety, if I'm wanted, or if I'm smuggling illegal goods, which, oh no, I am, then I must enter combat. Let's say that I wasn't smuggling and I wasn't wanted, I would not need to enter combat. If I win that combat, I get to gain the benefit, and if I lose, this card flips over. It's worth less legacy points, and now if I lose the next time, it's game over. If I lose, I rotate this 180 degrees, it's now worth less legacy points, and the next combat is going to take me one step closer to the end of the game. If I win, I'm going to rotate this 90 degrees as a resource, but I'm also going to become wanted. Whether it's pirates or authority, you flip over the top combat card to determine what ship you're going against. In this case, it's the gunship. So if it was authority, we'd have to enter combat. If it's a pirate, you get to roll a dice. Yay, it's a 1. So if we roll a 1 to 2, we must enter combat. If we had rolled a 3 or 4, we could discard a resource for no combat. Or we could escape for a 5 to 6. Let's say whichever it was, we enter into combat. First, we set up our enemy ship. So they start out with 5 hull points and also 3 round markers. Each ship has its own special ability. Usually when you roll a 6, something bad happens. They've also got their agility so they can evade your attacks and their shield points. Also, let's say that we're on run 2, so we flipped from the run 1 and 2 deck. First, let's distribute our power where we can. We can put a max of 3 on lasers, and I think we need those. So there's 3 power. That leaves 2. Let's put 1 on our shields, and let's put 1 on our engines, and let's pretend that we have 1, 2, 3 crew members. On my turn, I get to roll according to whatever weapon I chose. So in this case, it's 3 dice. Oh, okay, not the best roll in the world. So let's find out if we had any hits and how much damage we did. For it to be a hit, it needs to be a 2 or more, right? Except they have evasion. So we add this together. So 2 plus their evasion, 2. This needs to be a 4 or higher to count as a hit. So in this case, that would be only 1 hit so far. If I don't do any dice manipulation here, each hit is going to be worth however much power is in there. So 3 power for this weapon is going to be 3 damage. So I would do a total of 3 damage. How do I subtract that from the shield there? So I go 3 damage minus the shield. 3 minus 2, that's 1 damage to the hull. So their hull points would go down to 4. Let's say though that I was like, you know what? I'm going to risk it. These 2 crew members, they're going to sacrifice themselves so that we can make this whatever number we want. 5, 6, doesn't matter. That's going to be 3 more damage. So if we did that, they would actually be down to 1 already. But I'm also down to only 1 crew, and they are hard to get back, especially when they find out that you're a captain that keeps sacrificing them. Then it's the gunship's turn. They're going to roll however many dice. It says 3d6, and a 2 or more is going to be a hit. In this case, that would be all 3. But remember, I have some evasion. I have 1 power, so I have an evasion of 1. So 2 plus my evasion is 3. So 3 and higher is a hit. That's 2 hits. that they're making. But how much damage? It's based on the run number. We're on run 2, so that's 2 hits, 2 damage each. That's going to be 4 damage. But wait, I've got shields. I put 1 power, which means my shields are at 4. I blocked it all. We're good. We remove the round marker. We go again until we have no round markers left or one of us is defeated. If I successfully defeat the gunship, I have the option of boarding once per run. If I choose to board, I'm going to roll a dice. In this case, it's a 4. Let's pretend I still have 3 crew. What you do is you go 6 minus however many crew you have. And if, in this case, that's a 3. If the dice is that or higher, then you successfully board the gunship and you're able to take the top face down card from your market deck. If you fail, you lose 1 crew member. Keep this cube here to remind you that you boarded during this run. You can only do it once per run. If you don't choose to board, you've completed combat. If you were victorious, take the benefit. In this case, we get resources. Love it. If you were defeated, then apply the negative condition. In this case, rotating so that this is less valuable and closer to the end of the game. So we've had a look. So hey, is this a game for you? Let's look at what stood out to me. Theme. As you play, you can feel it from your first run that you're a baby pilot. You're rather novice. You're close to home. You know, the enemies aren't too scary. They're beatable, but enough to kind of warm you up, test your legs for what comes on future runs. Once you hit run like 5 moving forward, you're a lot deeper into space. You've gone further. You've stretched your legs. Now you have some risk. You know, you're taking on illegal cargo into space stations, and you can feel that as the game continues until you are a big, bad dude by run 8. But so are your opponents. Next is dice. Do you like dice? This is more a game of dice manipulation and mitigation than pure luck. When you're adding subsystems and upgrading your utilities, you're trying to find ways to manipulate your dice pool and maybe even the numbers. Then, of course, there's the mitigation with that key idea of heroism and making big sacrifices. Your crew's sacrificing themselves, your ship sacrificing some of its hull for you to mitigate those dice. Then there's the deck building mechanic. Do you enjoy deck building? So if you like the idea of upgrading cards and being able to kind of manipulate your hand to be what you want, but also realizing that if you fail, and you will fail sometimes, that also manipulates your deck for you. So then you got to fight back to take control of your ship. And also you'd want to be comfortable with a little bit of push your luck. So you're going to be making some risks, particularly with that heroism, maybe of running your crew a little low or running your ship hull a little bit low in order to mitigate the dice and hope it pays off. Sometimes it doesn't, but it feels real good when it does. Similar games to think about. Thematically, I'm going to say it's similar to ISS Vanguard with this idea of going into deep space exploration, but also for the dice pool manipulation. I'm also going to throw Final Girl and Hostage Negotiator in there because they share a similar mechanic of mitigating those dice through making sacrifices, costly sacrifices. However, those differ in that Final Girl, especially Final Girl, and a little bit Hostage Negotiator, does carry quite a bit of swing. I wouldn't say that I see a lot of swing in this game, primarily because you don't have out-of-control event cards. You've got a pretty balanced deck that you are able to control. And finally, I was thinking Paperback Adventures, because in that, you have that ability to upgrade your letter cards to make them more powerful, new abilities, that kind of thing. And it's similar with this when you're able to upgrade those cards in your deck. And also, some cards can be downgraded if you lose some rolls and aren't able to mitigate or manipulate any change. And also, just like in all those games, there's a good measure of planning that you're able to do since you're able to preview and select what the next event will be. There you have it, Voidpilot's Legacy. Is that a game for you? To learn more about the game or to back it, I've put a link in the description as well as the pinned comment below. I love you all. I'll see you next time.